There's a growing sense that something is missing from modern life, but it's difficult to put into words. By all measurable standards, the world has improved. We live longer, have access to more knowledge than any previous generation, and possess more freedom to shape our own destinies. Yet, despite all this, many people feel an unshakable emptiness. It's not an obvious suffering, not the kind caused by external hardship, but a quiet void, one that lingers beneath the surface, creeping in during moments of stillness. It's the feeling that no matter how much we achieve, acquire, or experience, something remains fundamentally unsatisfying. At first glance, this doesn't seem to make sense. If life is easier, why do so many struggle with meaninglessness? Shouldn't modern advancements make us feel more fulfilled, not less? The truth is that the emptiness people feel isn't random. It's not a flaw in the individual, but a byproduct of the world we live in. The way society is structured today is fundamentally different from how humans have lived for most of history. And while progress has given us many advantages, it has also severed us from things that once gave life depth and significance. The roots of this crisis run deep, but they can be traced back to how modern society defines success and fulfillment. From an early age, we are conditioned to chase external markers of achievement. We are told that happiness is found in reaching certain milestones, getting into a good school, securing a prestigious job, earning more money, finding a romantic partner, and maintaining an active social life. These pursuits, we are told, are what make life meaningful, yet many people reach these goals and feel no different. They graduate and feel lost. They get the job and feel trapped. They enter relationships and realize they still feel alone. The promises of fulfillment remain unfulfilled. This is because modern life operates on a system of perpetual pursuit. There is always a next step, a new level to reach, a higher goal to set. The moment one milestone is achieved, another appears. This isn't a coincidence. It is a feature of a society that thrives on productivity and consumption. If people were content, they wouldn't feel the need to buy more, do more, or constantly prove their worth. But by keeping them in a state of longing, always reaching, never arriving, society ensures that they remain engaged in the cycle. Philosophers have long warned about this condition. Friedrich Nietzsche saw it as the result of a world that had lost its deeper sense of purpose. With the death of God, traditional sources of meaning collapsed, and in their place, society substituted careerism, materialism, and superficial pleasures. Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of a similar emptiness, what he called nausea, the existential weight of realizing that life, as it is commonly structured, lacks inherent meaning. And Viktor Frankl, a psychologist who survived the horrors of the Holocaust, argued that the true suffering of modern humans isn't physical hardship, but the absence of a greater purpose to live for. Modern culture doesn't equip people to confront this issue. Instead of searching for meaning, they are encouraged to distract themselves from the void. Entertainment, social media, and endless consumer goods offer momentary relief but never true satisfaction. It's not an accident that streaming platforms are designed to make you lose track of time, or that social media is engineered to keep you scrolling. These systems thrive on keeping people occupied, numbing them just enough to keep them from questioning whether the structure of their lives is actually fulfilling. But distractions, no matter how entertaining, can't erase the underlying problem. The feeling of emptiness always returns. It's there in the quiet moments, in the spaces between distractions, in the realization that despite having more than any previous generation, people feel more disconnected than ever. The issue is not a lack of options or opportunities, it's a disconnection from what actually makes life meaningful. If modern life feels empty, it's because it has been designed to keep people fixated on external validation. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that our worth is determined by achievements, possessions, and the approval of others. We are placed into an education system that rewards compliance and performance rather than curiosity and self-discovery. We enter a workforce that measures success in terms of productivity and financial gain rather than fulfillment, and we engage in social structures that prioritize appearances over genuine connection. This conditioning creates a powerful illusion that if we just accomplish enough, earn enough, or gain enough recognition, we will finally feel whole. But the reality is far more unsettling. The pursuit of external success does not fill the void, it deepens it. The more people chase external validation, the further they stray from themselves. They become trapped in an endless cycle of striving, measuring their worth by standards they never chose, following a path they never question, and when they do pause to reflect, they often realize they have no idea who they are beyond their accomplishments. Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most influential existentialist philosophers, described this as bad faith, a state in which people deceive themselves into believing they are living authentically, when in reality they are simply conforming to societal expectations. He argued that much of human suffering comes from avoiding the responsibility of defining our own values. It is easier to follow the script society provides than to confront the terrifying freedom of deciding what truly matters. But this illusion is not just psychological, it is systemic. Modern economies rely on people constantly wanting more. The entire structure of capitalism depends on dissatisfaction. If people were content, they wouldn't be motivated to work harder, buy more, or endlessly chase new goals. Advertisements fuel this cycle by convincing people that they are incomplete and that fulfillment is just one purchase away. Social media intensifies it by making life a performance, where people feel pressured to curate an image of success and happiness rather than actually experiencing them. The result is a culture of constant comparison. People no longer evaluate their lives based on personal fulfillment, but on how they stack up against others. They see curated images of success, wealth, and beauty, and wonder why they feel so empty in comparison. But what they fail to realize is that everyone is playing the same game. Even those who seem to have it all often feel the same void. There is no finish line in this race, only an ever-moving target. Epicurus, an ancient Greek philosopher, argued that the key to happiness is not in accumulating more, but in wanting less. He believed that most human suffering comes from misguided desires, chasing things that do not truly satisfy. He distinguished between necessary desires, such as food, shelter, and friendship, which bring true contentment, and empty desires, such as status, longing, and fame, which only create endless longing. According to him, the modern obsession with external validation is a perfect example of an empty desire. It feels urgent, but it never delivers lasting fulfillment. This raises a crucial question. If the pursuit of status, wealth, and recognition does not bring real happiness, what does? How do we escape this cycle and reconnect with what truly matters? The answer lies not in achieving more, but in shifting our focus. Instead of asking, what should I accomplish next, we should be asking, what actually brings me meaning? Instead of measuring our worth by external standards, we should be defining success on our own terms. But breaking free from this mindset is not easy. It requires dismantling beliefs that have been ingrained since childhood. It demands questioning everything we have been taught about success, happiness, and purpose. It means embracing a kind of radical honesty, one that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about what we truly want versus what we have been conditioned to want. If modern life feels empty, it is because most people have never truly asked themselves what they want. Not what society tells them they should want, not what their parents expected of them, and not what they believe will make them look successful, but what actually fulfills them on a deep, personal level. The modern world is built to keep people distracted from this question. It provides endless entertainment, constant stimulation, and an infinite number of goals to chase. The result is that people spend years, even decades, climbing ladders that lead nowhere, pursuing lives that feel increasingly meaningless, and wondering why they still feel unsatisfied. One of the reasons for this emptiness is that people often mistake pleasure for meaning. The modern world has made pleasure incredibly accessible. Instant entertainment, social validation at the tap of a screen, food engineered to be addictive, and consumer goods designed to provide momentary excitement. But pleasure and meaning are not the same thing. Pleasure is temporary, fleeting, and often leaves people feeling emptier than before. It can be useful in moderation, but when pursued as a substitute for deeper fulfillment, it becomes a trap. This is why so many people feel disconnected, despite having everything they thought would make them happy. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, argued that what humans need most is not pleasure, but meaning. He observed that even in the most horrific conditions, those who found a sense of purpose, whether through love, faith, or a personal mission, were able to endure suffering with resilience. Meanwhile, those who lacked meaning, even if they were physically healthy, often fell into despair. Frankl's philosophy suggests that modern life feels empty not because people lack comfort or opportunity, but because they lack a reason to exist beyond themselves. This is a stark contrast to the message that modern culture promotes. People are taught that self-fulfillment comes from achieving personal success, accumulating wealth, and maximizing comfort. But these pursuits, when detached from a deeper sense of purpose, lead to an existential void. Studies have shown that after basic needs are met, additional wealth does not significantly increase happiness. People with immense fame and power often struggle with depression and addiction. The reason is simple: external achievements on their own do not create a fulfilling life. So where does meaning come from? Philosophers have debated this for centuries. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre argued that meaning is not something given to us, but something we must create for ourselves. He rejected the idea that life has any built-in purpose and instead encouraged people to actively choose values that make their existence meaningful. To Sartre, the emptiness that so many feel is not a problem, it is an opportunity. It is the freedom to define one's own path, rather than mindlessly following what others expect. Other thinkers, like Aristotle, believed that meaning comes from virtue and self-actualization. He argued that the highest form of happiness is found in developing one's potential, cultivating wisdom, and contributing to something greater than oneself. This perspective suggests that fulfillment is not about what we have, but about who we become. It is not about external success, but about inner growth. Epicurus had a different but complementary view. He believed that true happiness comes from simple pleasures, deep friendships, intellectual pursuits, and a life free from unnecessary desires. Unlike modern consumer culture, which constantly tells people they need more, Epicurus believed that happiness comes from needing less. He saw the endless pursuit of status and material wealth as distractions that pull people away from real fulfillment. The challenge, then, is to break free from the illusion that modern society creates, that meaning is found in chasing success, maximizing pleasure, or gaining external approval. Instead, the goal should be to ask, what truly brings fulfillment? What activities, relationships, or pursuits create a sense of deep satisfaction rather than just temporary pleasure? This shift requires a fundamental change in perspective. It means resisting the urge to constantly compare one's life to others. It means questioning the narratives that have been absorbed over the years about what it means to be successful, happy, or worthy. It means recognizing that meaning cannot be bought, achieved, or externally validated. It must be built from within. If the emptiness of modern life stems from chasing pleasure instead of meaning, the next question is, how do we break free from this cycle? How do we stop feeling disconnected and start building a life that is truly fulfilling? The problem is not just that modern life offers too many distractions, it is that it conditions people to depend on them. The endless stream of entertainment, social media validation, consumerism, and dopamine-driven habits keeps people constantly engaged but never satisfied. To escape this, we must first recognize how deeply these patterns shape our thoughts and behaviors. A major obstacle to fulfillment is the way modern society defines success. People are told that their worth is measured by their achievements, wealth, and social status. They are encouraged to constantly prove themselves, to be productive, to optimize every aspect of their lives, to always be moving toward the next big goal. But this endless striving often leads not to happiness, but to exhaustion. People spend their lives chasing goals they did not even choose for themselves, only to find that once they reach them, the satisfaction is short-lived. The philosopher Alan Watts compared this to a music performance. In music, the goal is not to reach the end of the song as quickly as possible. The goal is to experience it, to engage with it fully. But modern life teaches people to live as if the point is to rush to the end, to accumulate as much as possible as fast as possible, without ever stopping to ask why. The result is a sense of restlessness, a feeling that something is missing, but never knowing exactly what. To escape this, people must redefine what success means to them personally. Instead of measuring worth by external achievements, they must learn to value internal fulfillment. This does not mean abandoning ambition. It means shifting the focus from impressing others to living in alignment with one's true self. This is where existentialist thinkers like Soren Kierkegaard and Jean-Paul Sartre offer insight. They argued that true fulfillment comes from authenticity, from making choices based on personal values rather than social expectations. For Kierkegaard, the problem with modern life is that most people live in what he called the aesthetic stage, where they prioritize pleasure, external success, and avoiding discomfort. But this way of living eventually leads to despair because it is superficial. He believed that real meaning comes when people transition to the ethical stage, where they take responsibility for their choices and seek a deeper sense of purpose. This does not necessarily mean finding some grand universal truth. It simply means living in a way that feels meaningful on a personal level. But how do we do this in a world that constantly pulls us toward distraction? One of the most effective ways is by creating space for stillness and self-reflection. Modern life is designed to keep people constantly stimulated, never alone with their thoughts. This is why so many struggle with solitude. It forces them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their lives. But it is precisely in those moments of silence that clarity emerges. Many of history's greatest thinkers, from Marcus Aurelius to Carl Jung, emphasized the importance of solitude as a tool for self-discovery. Another key is to be intentional about what we consume, not just in terms of food, but in terms of information, media, and even relationships. Most people passively absorb whatever content is put in front of them, without questioning whether it adds value to their lives. Social media, for example, is often more about comparison and validation than genuine connection. News cycles are designed to generate fear and outrage rather than understanding. Entertainment is often more about escape than enrichment. If we are constantly filling our minds with empty noise, it is no wonder we feel disconnected. A more intentional approach means choosing inputs that inspire, educate, and challenge us. It means engaging in deeper conversations instead of surface-level socializing. It means reading books that expand our perspective instead of scrolling through endless distractions. It means actively participating in life rather than just consuming it. The final step is to start prioritizing experiences over possessions. Studies consistently show that people find greater long-term happiness from meaningful experiences, travel, learning, creating, than from material goods. This aligns with Epicurus's philosophy that true happiness comes not from having more but from needing less. He argued that once basic needs are met, additional wealth and possessions do little to increase well-being. Instead, what truly matters is how we spend our time, who we spend it with, and what we devote our energy to. Recognizing the emptiness of modern life is one thing, escaping it is another. The forces that pull people into distraction, superficiality, and meaningless pursuits are deeply ingrained, both in society and in the individual psyche. But just as these patterns were learned, they can also be unlearned. The challenge is not just in understanding what needs to change, but in building the discipline and awareness to make that change a reality. One of the biggest obstacles to breaking free from the cycle of emptiness is habit. The mind is conditioned by routine, and modern life reinforces routines that keep people in a constant state of distraction. The first step in reclaiming meaning is to disrupt these habits, to create space for something different. This is where thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche and Carl Jung offer valuable insight. Both recognize that true transformation requires confrontation, a willingness to face uncomfortable truths, question deeply held beliefs, and embrace the uncertainty that comes with real growth. Nietzsche, in particular, warned against the dangers of passive living. He described modern people as being caught in what he called last man, a state of existence where comfort and security are valued above all else, where people avoid challenge and discomfort in favor of mindless entertainment and empty pleasures. To break free from this state, he argued, one must cultivate a sense of will to power, a drive to shape one's own destiny, rather than simply going along with the expectations of society. But how does one develop this sense of agency in a world designed to encourage passivity? The answer lies in intentional action. Instead of being led by impulse, one must learn to make conscious choices about how to spend time, where to direct attention, and what to prioritize. This requires a shift in mindset, from being a consumer of life to being a creator of it. Every decision, no matter how small, shapes the trajectory of one's existence. One of the most effective ways to start this process is by reclaiming control over attention. Modern life is structured to fragment attention, to keep people constantly distracted. Social media, advertising, and endless notifications are all designed to hijack the mind, making it difficult to focus on anything meaningful for an extended period. But deep work, whether in the form of creative pursuits, intellectual exploration, or meaningful conversation, requires sustained attention. The more one can cultivate the ability to focus, the easier it becomes to engage with life on a deeper level. Another crucial aspect of escaping the emptiness of modern life is reconnecting with reality. The digital age has created a world where much of life is lived through screens, relationships, entertainment, even identity itself. This detachment from the physical world contributes to feelings of alienation and dissatisfaction. Philosophers like Martin Heidegger warned against this, emphasizing the importance of being present in the real, tangible world. He argued that technology, while useful, can also create a false sense of connection that prevents people from engaging fully with existence. To counteract this, one must actively seek real experiences. This means spending time in nature, engaging in hands-on activities, and prioritizing face-to-face interactions over digital communication. It means shifting from passive consumption to active participation, creating instead of just watching, doing instead of just scrolling. The more one engages with reality, the less appealing the artificial distractions of modern life become. Another key element is learning to embrace solitude. Many people fear being alone with their thoughts, which is why they constantly seek distraction. But solitude is not the same as loneliness. When used intentionally, it becomes a powerful tool for self-discovery. Thinkers like Blaise Pascal and Arthur Schopenhauer saw solitude as essential for developing wisdom and clarity. Pascal even suggested that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Practicing solitude does not mean withdrawing from the world entirely, but rather creating space for reflection, creativity, and deep thought. It means learning to be comfortable with oneself without needing constant validation or stimulation from external sources. When one can find peace in solitude, the endless need for distraction begins to fade. As these changes begin to take root, a deeper transformation occurs. A shift in values. The things that once seemed important, social status, material possessions, the pursuit of shallow pleasures, start to lose their grip. In their place, a new sense of fulfillment emerges, one based on meaning, purpose, and authentic experience. The most important thing to recognize is that modern life is designed to keep people disengaged from their own potential. Algorithms, media, advertising, and even certain social structures thrive on distraction and dependence. They rely on people being reactive rather than proactive, on living passively rather than with purpose. Understanding this is the first step toward change, because once you see the system for what it is, you are no longer controlled by it in the same way. You begin to question the defaults you once accepted. This awareness must be followed by action. A common mistake people make when trying to escape the void of modern life is attempting a radical overhaul, believing that if they change everything at once, they will find fulfillment. But real change is more sustainable when approached incrementally. Small, deliberate shifts compound over time, transforming the way you experience life without the resistance that comes with extreme, unsustainable efforts. One of the most effective ways to maintain a sense of meaning is through the practice of intentional attention. The mind is constantly being pulled in different directions, bombarded by endless streams of information, entertainment, and stimuli. If you do not take control of your focus, the world will do it for you. Learning to direct attention toward things that matter, whether it be deep conversations, creative work, nature, or intellectual pursuits, gradually rewires the brain away from the need for constant external stimulation. Another crucial practice is cultivating depth in a world of surface-level experiences. Most modern entertainment, communication, and even relationships are designed to be fast, fleeting, and easily digestible. Social media thrives on short bursts of engagement rather than long-form discussion. News cycles focus on immediate reactions rather than thoughtful analysis. Even friendships and romantic relationships are often reduced to digital interactions that lack real substance. Breaking free from this means actively seeking depth, reading books rather than just scrolling headlines, engaging in real conversations rather than exchanging brief messages, and dedicating time to skills and knowledge that require patience and effort. This also extends to relationships. The people you surround yourself with have a profound impact on the way you see the world. Many people find themselves trapped in social circles that reinforce the very habits they are trying to escape. Constant comparison, mindless entertainment, superficial engagement. Choosing to invest in relationships that challenge and inspire you is one of the most powerful ways to maintain a meaningful life. Seeking out mentors, thinkers, or even just friends who value depth and authenticity can completely reshape your perspective. Equally important is redefining what success means. Society often equates success with wealth, status, and external validation. But if these things do not bring real fulfillment, are they truly worth pursuing? Many of the greatest thinkers and philosophers have argued that true success lies in self-mastery, in the ability to align your actions with your values, and in the pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, and purpose. Stepping away from the conventional definitions of success and crafting your own standard is a radical act in a world that constantly tries to dictate what should matter. There is also the question of solitude. While social connection is important, solitude is where true clarity emerges. Many people avoid being alone with their thoughts because it forces them to confront uncomfortable truths about their lives and themselves. But facing these truths is the only way to grow beyond them. Learning to sit with discomfort, rather than escaping it through distraction, is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. It allows for real self-reflection, real transformation. At its core, escaping the emptiness of modern life is not about rejecting all aspects of modernity, but about learning to navigate it with awareness. It is about knowing when to engage and when to step back, when to participate and when to detach. It is about being conscious of the choices you make each day and recognizing that every small action, where you direct your focus, how you spend your time, what you consume, who you surround yourself with, shapes the trajectory of your life. The world is full of distractions, but it is also full of meaning. The same technologies that can enslave can also be used for knowledge and self-improvement. The same social structures that encourage passivity can also be challenged and reshaped. The same habits that keep people trapped can be unlearned, replaced with ones that lead to depth, understanding, and fulfillment. One of the first barriers to overcome is the fear of missing out. The idea that if you disconnect from the mainstream flow of modern culture, you will somehow be left behind. This fear keeps people tethered to the very habits and systems they know are draining them. They continue scrolling through endless content, consuming empty entertainment and chasing external validation because the alternative, silence, introspection, stepping into the unknown, feels intimidating. But the irony is that the more people try to keep up, the more they lose themselves. To truly escape the emptiness of modern life, you must be willing to embrace being an outsider. The world rewards conformity, and choosing a different path will often make you feel like you are swimming against the current. You may find that you have less in common with old friends, that certain conversations feel dull or meaningless, or that the usual sources of entertainment no longer hold your interest. This can be unsettling, but it is also a sign of growth. When you start craving more from life, it means you are no longer satisfied with the surface level. It means you are seeking something real. This is where the process of reconstruction begins. It is not just about removing the distractions and the meaningless habits. It is about replacing them with something better. If you simply cut out social media, junk entertainment, or other passive habits without filling that space with something meaningful, you will eventually fall back into old patterns. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the human mind. Start by identifying what truly brings you fulfillment, not in the immediate dopamine-driven sense, but in a deeper, more lasting way. Think about the moments in your life when you have felt most alive, most engaged, most connected to something greater than yourself. What were you doing? Who were you with? What ideas or activities gave you a sense of purpose? The answers to these questions are clues, guiding you toward the kind of life you are meant to build. For many, this involves shifting from passive consumption to active creation. Modern life is designed to turn people into spectators rather than participants. People watch rather than do, consume rather than create, react rather than think. But fulfillment is found in creation, in producing something of value, whether that be art, writing, music, knowledge, or meaningful work. Even if you do not see yourself as a creative person, there is always something to build, to cultivate, to bring into existence. A life centered around creation rather than consumption is a life that resists the emptiness of modernity. The same applies to relationships. Modern culture often reduces social interaction to mere transactions, networking for personal gain, relationships built on convenience rather than depth, endless swiping and superficial connections. But human beings are wired for genuine connection, for relationships that challenge, inspire, and support them. Choosing quality over quantity in relationships, seeking out people who share your values, who make you think, who push you to grow, creates a social life that is fulfilling rather than draining. Another key to escaping the void is developing a sense of mastery. The modern world conditions people to be passive, to expect instant gratification, to avoid struggle. But real fulfillment comes from effort, from patience, from working towards something that requires time and discipline. Whether it is learning a skill, developing a craft, or dedicating yourself to a meaningful pursuit, mastery provides a deep sense of satisfaction that no quick fix can replicate. But perhaps the most important shift of all is learning to be content with simplicity. Modern life thrives on excess, more stimulation, more possessions, more experiences, more distractions. But Epicurus, and many great thinkers after him, argued that real happiness is found not in having more, but in needing less. A simple life does not mean a life of deprivation. It means a life free from unnecessary burdens, from mindless chasing, from the belief that happiness is always somewhere just out of reach. When you strip away what is unnecessary, what remains is what truly matters. The friendships that are genuine, the work that is meaningful, the quiet moments of joy that come from simply being present. This is not an easy path, nor is it one that modern society encourages, but it is the path that leads to something real, something lasting. The truth is, the forces that create this emptiness will not disappear. Social media will continue to bombard you with carefully engineered distractions. Consumer culture will keep feeding you the illusion that happiness is just one more purchase away. The modern world will always push convenience over depth, instant gratification over long-term fulfillment. And even though you may have seen through the illusion, the temptation to fall back into old patterns will still be there. That is why sustaining a meaningful life requires more than just rejecting the superficial. It requires actively building a foundation that keeps you rooted in what truly matters. One of the most important ways to do this is by creating a structure that reinforces depth and purpose in your daily life, routines that support your growth, habits that align with your values, and an environment that makes it easier to choose fulfillment over distraction. A strong structure is necessary because willpower alone is unreliable. If you rely solely on motivation, on the occasional burst of inspiration to keep you on the right path, you will find yourself constantly struggling. The modern world is designed to be effortless. Entertainment, convenience, and comfort are always within reach. But a meaningful life is not effortless. It requires intention. One of the most effective ways to stay grounded is by surrounding yourself with the right influences. You become what you expose yourself to. If your environment is filled with mindless distractions, shallow conversations, and people who encourage complacency, it will be nearly impossible to sustain a meaningful life. But if you cultivate relationships with people who challenge you, who think deeply, who pursue growth and understanding, then you will be constantly reminded of what truly matters. It is also important to embrace solitude, not as a retreat from the world, but as a way to cultivate inner clarity. In a culture that thrives on constant stimulation, being alone with your thoughts can feel uncomfortable at first, but solitude is where true self-awareness develops. It is where you can reflect, refine your values, and reconnect with the deeper parts of yourself that are often drowned out by the noise of daily life. At the same time, sustaining a meaningful life does not mean isolating yourself. Community matters. The challenge is to build or find a community that aligns with your values. This does not have to mean a large group of like-minded individuals. It can be as simple as a handful of people who truly understand you, who share your pursuit of meaning, and who are willing to engage in conversations that go beyond the surface. Another key to sustaining fulfillment is learning to resist the pull of comparison. Modern life is structured in a way that constantly makes people feel inadequate. Social media creates the illusion that others are happier, more successful, more fulfilled. Advertising is designed to make you feel like you are missing something. Even the expectations of family, friends, and society can create the pressure to live a life that is not truly your own. But real fulfillment comes from defining success on your own terms. Not by measuring yourself against others, but by living in a way that aligns with what truly matters to you. Perhaps the most difficult but necessary shift is learning to embrace discomfort. In a world obsessed with comfort, many of the most meaningful experiences require struggle. Mastery of any skill takes time and effort. Building deep relationships requires vulnerability and the willingness to have difficult conversations. Growth often comes through pain, through failure, through the willingness to step into the unknown. Epicurus argued that the key to happiness is not indulging in every pleasure, but in learning to desire what truly leads to fulfillment. When you rewire your mind to seek depth over distraction, purpose over convenience, and meaning over mindless pleasure, you begin to break free from the cycle that keeps so many trapped. The goal is not to eliminate all struggle, but to choose the struggles that are worth enduring, the ones that lead to something greater. In the end, escaping the emptiness of modern life is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process, a daily commitment to living with intention. Some days will be easier than others. There will be moments of doubt, of temptation, of exhaustion. But if you have built a foundation that supports your values, if you have surrounded yourself with people and habits that reinforce depth, then you will always have something to return to. And maybe that is the real secret. Not seeking a life without struggle, but creating a life where the struggles are meaningful, where every challenge you face, every decision you make, every habit you build contributes to something greater. A life where, even in the quiet moments, you know you are not just existing, you are truly living.